staggering 9,000 emperor penguin chicks perished last November, and scientists believe it's because of, you probably guessed it, unprecedented sea ice melting in Antarctica. Now that's according to a new study published in the journal Nature. Here's the title of that article. Record low 2022 Antarctic sea ice led to catastrophic breeding failure of emperor penguins. Antarctic sea ice is in the midst of a staggering disastrous decline, and Common Dreams wrote about that. They said that 4 of the years with the lowest sea ice extent in the 45-year satellite record have been in the last 7 years, with the lowest in 2021 to 2022 and 2022 to 2023, according to the British Antarctic Survey. In February of this year, ice extent shrank to a record low, and it has not fully recovered during the Antarctic winter months. So we have a graph that displays exactly what we're talking about. So you can see in the graph that the orange line illustrates that the extent of Antarctic sea ice this year is well below the average. It was the lowest amount of ice ever seen in June. And between October and January of 22 to 23, sea ice around the continent has been at or below the lowest ever recorded in the 45-year satellite record. And what does this mean for the penguins? It's really bad news. Between April and January, they spend their time on sea ice connected to the land. There they lay and hatch their eggs in the Antarctic winter and rear them through the spring until the chicks develop waterproof plumage in December or January and are ready to strike off on their own. And I'll just say, moving forward in the story, it gets really sad for the penguins because the co-author Norm Ratcliffe explained this. But if it breaks earlier than that, the chicks basically lose that platform. So they either fall into the sea or they drown. Ratcliffe added that while the chicks might be able to make it to an iceberg, their feathers would still be wet, so they'll probably freeze to death. And that's exactly what the scientists in the study think happened to 4 out of 5 emperor penguin colonies in the Bellingshausen Sea region. Researchers had been tracking the colonies using satellite imagery for years based on the buildup of guano, aka penguin poop, on the ice. Then in November, that ice suddenly disintegrated, with some areas seeing a loss of 100%. I'm gonna say that again, 100%. But the ice went the guano, leading the scientists to conclude the colonies were abandoned. They think it's unlikely that the chicks survived the loss. And you can see the loss of sea ice in these satellite images. So this is the first recorded case of such extensive breeding failure in emperor penguins due to sea ice loss. But the study authors warn it may be a snapshot of a future warming Antarctica. And lastly, the lead author Peter Fretwell told the BBC this: there is hope. We can cut our carbon emissions that are causing the warming, but if we don't, we will drive these iconic, beautiful birds to the verge of extinction. And Cenk, reading that still sort of broke my heart because, as someone who cares about climate change and, lowering carbon emissions, I think that the hope is small, even when I try to be optimistic that, our country's government and governments around the globe are actually gonna take up the cause of the human species, let alone the emperor penguins, when it comes to reducing carbon emissions.
Yeah, look, I'm a big fan of man, what the right wing would call a secular humanist. They say it derisively, I say it with great pride. But having said that, we are a bit of a virus. And so we could turn it around, and I believe in us, but we are killing off a giant number of life on this planet. It's definitely our fault. So look, I don't know if you guys even know this, but the saber-toothed tiger, I thought, and this made my ignorance, I thought they died off with the dinosaurs and the woolly mammoth too. Turns out, no, saber-toothed tiger only became extinct 8 to 10,000 years ago, and woolly mammoth only 4,000 years ago. Guess who killed them? We did. We killed them all. There was giant species in Australia until man landed in Australia. We killed them all. And so here, I'm gonna go to graphic 9 to give you a sense of the damage we're doing now. A growing number of scientists note that the Earth is in the midst of a 6th mass extinction driven by human activities, namely the conversion of natural areas to agriculture and urban uses, hunting and overfishing, pollution, and climate change. Researchers estimate that the current rate of species loss varies between 100 and 10,000 times the background extinction rate. We are killing off these species at record pace. You know how much ice has melted in that region? Enough ice to cover the size of Greenland. Have you ever seen Greenland on a map? So those penguins are all drowning. They're the chicks. But part of the reason we're doing this story is that so you can see it with your own eyes. When we kill off these thousands of different species, you never see it. But look at the cute penguins and understand that it's our fault that they're all falling into the water and dying because we're changing the climate like nothing the world has ever seen before. And soon, of course, just when we think, who cares? Let's kill off all the different animals. Let's kill off the penguins now. Well, at the end of the day, it's gonna come back and it's gonna get us. The earth is gonna be fine. The earth is gonna shake us off and then go back to creating life. But we don't have any idea the kind of damage that we're doing today. Jordan.
Yeah, and unfortunately, a lot of people on the right or climate skeptics in general will see this and only look at it in a silo. They will refuse to acknowledge this as part of a larger trend. And like you're saying, Cenk, by the time it gets to us, it's going to be too late. The first people and groups and places on this planet that are really going to be affected by climate change and are being affected by climate change aren't really the major population centers, aren't where power is concentrated, and the elite don't live there. But the thing is, you can look to the elite's behavior to know that it is real, because they're all building and creating bunkers in remote locations that would be safe from a climate apocalypse because they want to survive. They don't care if you survive, but they're gonna make as much money and they're gonna contribute to climate change as much as they can that enables them to make more and more money because they have a backup plan and they know you're screwed. And it was surprising to see in the debate earlier this week, the question from the young Republican was about climate change and asking about it, saying that, acknowledging in the question that it is the number1 issue impacting young voters. Unfortunately, nobody on that stage took it seriously, and you had the overzealous, try-hard Vivek Ramaswamy explicitly call it a hoax. But you have to acknowledge that it's even being mentioned as an issue that young voters are concerned about does show that this problem is unignorable completely. They have to at least talk about it rather than just talking about the importance of offshore drilling.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.